Welcome to sleepy Japan. Tonight, we drift together into a quiet story from Japan, a tale shaped by stillness, tradition, and the soft rhythm of night. Before we begin, take a slow breath in and exhale gently. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your hands rest. Let your thoughts begin to settle as the world around you softens into calm. Imagine a peaceful evening, light from a simple paper lantern drifting across the room, a cool breeze moving just beyond the window. And in the distance, a single temple bell echoing through the night. Each sound carries you deeper into rest. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to be. Just breathe and let the night open gently around you. Feel peace moving through your body, from your chest to your shoulders, to the quiet rhythm of your breath. The world outside grows silent. Only the sound of your breathing remains, and the soft promise of dreams waiting to unfold. Now, as the moon rises above the hills and the night deepens, let us begin tonight's story. The Battle of the Ape and Crab. Long, long ago, in the quiet countryside of old Japan, where mist rose gently from rice paddies at dawn, there lived a small crab in the soft mud of a peaceful marsh. The sound of temple bells drifted across valleys like whispered prayers, and the marsh lay nestled between rolling hills covered in bamboo groves, where the wind sang ancient songs through hollow stems. On summer evenings, fireflies danced like scattered stars fallen to earth. The crab was a simple creature, content with the rhythm of seasons that flowed like water over stones of time. Each morning, as the sun painted the eastern sky in shades of pearl and gold, he would emerge from his burrow beneath an old willow tree. The willow's branches swept the water's surface with the gentle touch of a calligrapher's brush. The marsh was his world, a small kingdom of mud and water plants, where dragonflies skimmed the surface and clouds moved like dreams across still water. On this particular morning, the autumn air carried the sweet scent of ripening persimmons. The distant sound of farmers harvesting rice drifted through the valley. The crab ventured further from his home than usual. As he made his way along a narrow path, winding between the marsh and a grove of persimmon trees, he discovered something that made his heart flutter with quiet joy. There, half buried in the soft earth beside the path, lay a rice cake. Its surface was white as fresh snow, round and perfect as the full moon that had blessed the night before. The crab's eyes, black as polished stones, regarded this treasure with wonder. Rice cakes were precious things, symbols of prosperity and good fortune. To find such a gift seemed like a blessing from the kami themselves, the spirits that dwelt in all things and watched over the affairs of mortals with benevolent eyes. Carefully, with the reverence one shows when handling something sacred, the crab lifted the rice cake in his claws. It was still soft, still fragrant with the clean scent of newly harvested rice. But as he stood there in the dappled sunlight, contemplating his good fortune, he heard the sound of approaching footsteps on the path. Through the grove came an ape, his fur the colour of autumn leaves, his eyes bright with intelligence and something else, a cunning that glittered like sunlight on water. When he saw the crab with his rice cake, the ape's expression brightened with interest. "Good morning, honoured friend," the ape said, his voice smooth as silk. "What a beautiful morning this is it not?" The crab, being a creature of simple honesty, bowed politely in return. "Indeed, it is a blessed morning," the crab replied, his voice gentle as the whisper of wind through water reeds. The ape's eyes fixed upon the rice cake with unmistakable longing. "I see you have found a treasure," he observed. "Such a perfect rice cake." Now the ape reached into a pouch he carried at his side, withdrawing something that he held concealed in his palm. "Look here," he said, opening his hand to reveal what lay within. A persimmon seed, but not just any seed. The seed lay in the ape's palm like a small brown jewel, hard and unremarkable to most eyes. But the ape spoke of it with such reverence that the crab found himself leaning forward to examine it more closely. "This seed," the ape continued, "carries within it the potential for endless abundance. Plant it in good soil, tend it with care, and in time it will grow into a mighty tree, bearing fruit for generations." The crab listened with growing fascination. The ape's words painted pictures in his mind of shade-dappled gardens, of branches bending under the weight of ripe fruit, of seasons cycling endlessly while the tree stood as a monument to patience and faith. "The beauty of it," the ape went on, "is that this seed comes from a tree blessed by the mountain spirits themselves." The morning light shifted through the persimmon leaves above them, casting dancing shadows on the path. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell chimed the hour, its bronze voice carrying across the valley. The crab found himself torn between competing desires. The rice cake was a certain pleasure, immediate and satisfying. The seed represented possibility, potential, the kind of patient investment that required faith in the future. "I confess," the crab said slowly, "your words stir something in my heart. There is wisdom in thinking beyond the immediate moment." The ape nodded enthusiastically. "If you are willing," he continued, "I would be honoured to make an exchange with you, your rice cake for my precious seed." The crab considered this proposal as the morning light continued to shift and change around them. "Your words carry the ring of truth," the crab said at last. "I accept your proposal, honoured friend." The trade was accomplished with ceremonial care. The crab placed his rice cake gently in the ape's outstretched hands, and the ape deposited the persimmon seed in the crab's claws with equal solemnity. The ape was the first to break the spell. "May this exchange bring blessings to us both," he said, bowing deeply. With these words, the ape turned and departed, biting into the rice cake with obvious pleasure. Alone again on the path, the crab examined his new treasure more closely. The seed was heavier than he had expected, dense with potential energy. The walk home to his marsh seemed filled with dreams and plans. When he reached his home beneath the willow tree, the crab selected the perfect spot for planting, with the care of a master gardener. The planting itself was performed with ritual precision. He dug a small hole with his claws, working slowly and carefully, creating the perfect nursery for his seed. When all was ready, he He placed the seed in its earthy bed, with the tenderness of a parent tucking a child into sleep. "Grow well, little one," he whispered to the buried seed. Days passed into weeks with no visible sign of life above the soil. The crab visited the spot each morning and evening, sometimes sitting beside it in silent meditation, sometimes talking softly to the hidden seed. Autumn deepened around them, painting the marsh in shades of gold and crimson. Still, the earth remained smooth and undisturbed. Winter came with its blanket of snow, covering the earth in pristine white. The spot where the seed lay was marked now by a small mound of snow, like a shrine dedicated to the patience of hope. During the long, quiet nights of winter, the crab often dreamed of his tree. Spring returned as it always does, with the gradual warming of the air and the slow retreat of snow from the hills. On a morning when the air was soft with the promise of warmth, and the first cherry blossoms were opening like prayers made visible, the crab made his daily pilgrimage to the site of his planting. What he saw there made his heart leap with joy. A tiny green shoot had pushed through the soil during the night, no bigger than a grain of rice, but unmistakably alive. "Welcome, little tree," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Welcome to the world above ground." From that day forward, the crab's life took on a new rhythm centered around the care of his growing tree. The growth was slow but steady. New leaves appeared regularly, each one a little larger than the last. Summer brought rapid growth, as the young tree took advantage of the long days and warm temperatures. Autumn arrived again, marking the first full year since the planting. The tree now stood taller than the crab himself, with branches that spread in a pleasing pattern. The second year brought even more dramatic growth. By the third autumn, the tree had grown tall enough to be seen from a considerable distance. It was during this third year that the crab first noticed small buds appearing along the branches. Buds that were different from the leaf buds he had grown accustomed to seeing. Spring of the fourth year brought the miracle the crab had been waiting for. The mysterious buds opened to reveal flowers. As spring turned to summer, the flowers gave way to tiny green persimmons, each one no larger than a pea, but perfectly formed and growing larger each day. Then, as autumn settled over the marsh, the transformation finally began. The first persimmon showed a blush of orange at its top. Within days, the colour spread, and soon the entire fruit glowed like a small sun among the leaves. One by one, the other persimmons followed suit, transforming from green to gold to deep orange. The tree became a beacon of abundance. But as he stood beneath his tree, looking up at the golden fruit that hung just beyond his reach, he realized that he faced a practical problem. The best persimmons hung from branches too high for him to reach from the ground. He was contemplating various solutions to this challenge when he heard familiar footsteps on the path. To his surprise, the approaching figure was none other than the ape who had traded him the seed all those years ago. When the ape saw the crab and the tree, his eyes widened with genuine amazement. "My old friend," the ape called out, "is this truly the tree that grew from the seed we exchanged? It is magnificent." The crab felt a flush of pride. "Indeed it is," he replied. 4 years of patient care have brought us to this moment of harvest." The ape approached the tree with something approaching reverence. "The fruit looks perfect," he observed. "I confess," the crab said eventually, "that the best persimmons hang beyond my reach." The ape's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "I would be honored to help you gather your harvest," he declared. "Climbing has always been my greatest skill." The offer seemed generous and practical. "That is most kind of you," the crab said. The ape's climb up the tree trunk was a display of natural grace and skill. Once among the branches, the ape began his work, moving from persimmon to persimmon. But as the crab watched from below, he began to notice something troubling about the ape's behavior. While the ape was indeed picking persimmons with great care, he was not dropping them down to the crab as they had agreed. Instead, he seemed to be eating them himself. "Friend ape," the crab called up into the tree, his voice carefully controlled but edged with concern. "I notice that the fruit you are gathering does not seem to be reaching the ground." The ape paused in his eating long enough to look down. "Oh, did you want these persimmons for yourself?" he asked, his tone suggesting that this was an unexpected request. The casual dismissal of their agreement sent a shock of anger through the crab's usually peaceful disposition. "The fruit belongs to me," the crab said, his voice rising with indignation. "This is my tree, grown from the seed you traded to me, tended with my labor through 4 long years." The ape laughed, a sound devoid of warmth or friendship. "The fruit may be yours in principle," he said, "but I am the one who can actually reach it." The crab felt a rage building within him, unlike anything he had ever experienced. "The persimmons up here are truly exceptional," the ape continued, biting into another one with obvious relish. But the crab was not entirely helpless. His years of tending the tree had taught him more about its structure than the ape might have realized. "Ape," the crab called up, his voice now calm with purpose, "perhaps you would be so kind as to throw down at least the unripe persimmons." The ape laughed again. "You are quite right," he said. "These green ones are too bitter to be worth eating." He began picking the unripe fruit and tossing it down toward the crab. "Actually," the crab said, his voice taking on a tone of helpful suggestion, "it would be much more efficient if you could position yourself head downward while you work." The suggestion seemed to make sense to the ape. Without thinking too carefully, he repositioned himself on the branch so that he was hanging head downward. This was exactly what the crab had been hoping for. As soon as the ape inverted himself, the ripe persimmons that he had stuffed into his pockets began to fall out, tumbling down through the branches to land on the ground. The crab quickly scurried about, gathering up the stolen fruit as it fell. But his advantage was only temporary. Moving with quick efficiency, the crab gathered as many of the fallen persimmons as he could carry, and retreated to the safety of his burrow beneath the willow tree. The ape, discovering that his pockets were now empty, let out a roar of fury that echoed across the marsh like thunder. "You will pay for this trickery," the ape shouted as he climbed down from the tree. "I will have my revenge." The threat carried a weight of genuine menace. Safe for the moment in the depths of his burrow, the crab tried to think clearly about his situation. The crab's fears proved justified sooner than he had expected. When hunger and thirst finally forced him to emerge from his hiding place, the ape was waiting. The attack came without warning, a sudden rush of fur and fury that knocked the crab sprawling. The beating that followed was methodical and vicious. The crab's shell, hard though it was, could not protect him from the sustained assault. This is what happens to creatures who think they can outsmart their betters, the ape snarled. When the ape finally tired of his violence and departed, the crab lay broken and bleeding in the mud of his beloved marsh. For a long time, the crab simply lay where he had fallen, overwhelmed by pain and despair. It was in this darkest moment that salvation appeared, in the form of 3 unlikely allies. An egg, round and white, and somehow luminous in the fading light, rolled slowly across the path toward where the crab lay suffering. Behind it came a bee, her wings catching the last rays of sunlight like fragments of stained glass. The third member of this strange procession was perhaps the most unexpected of all, a rice mortar, worn smooth by countless years of service, moving with the measured dignity of great age. The egg reached the crab first, rolling gently against his damaged shell. "We saw what happened," the egg said, her voice soft but carrying undertones of barely controlled fury. "The ape's cruelty cannot be allowed to stand unanswered." The bee alighted on a reed near the crab's head. "Justice delayed is justice denied," she said. "The balance must be restored." The rice mortar came to rest beside the crab with a solidity that spoke of immovable determination. "We know how to deal with creatures like the ape," he said, his voice deep and resonant. Together, these 3 good Samaritans tended to the crab's wounds, with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with their obvious capacity for righteous anger. "Rest and recovery first," the mortar advised. "Justice will come in its proper time." As they worked, the 3 allies shared their observations about the ape and his patterns of behavior. "He believes himself untouchable," the bee observed. "His agility and cleverness have protected him from consequences for so long." The egg nodded in agreement. "Pride comes before the fall," she said, with quiet certainty. The rice mortar, who had remained silent during much of this conversation, finally spoke with the gravity of one pronouncing judgment. "The ape's crimes are not just against our friend here, they are against the natural order itself." As the night deepened around them, the 4 allies worked out a plan for justice that would be both fitting and final. The next morning, while the ape was away from his dwelling, the 4 conspirators put their plan into motion. The egg took position in the ashes of the ape's cooking fire, settling down among the cold coals where she would be invisible. The bee found a hiding place in a cupboard where the ape stored his stolen food. A piece of seaweed, who had joined their cause, took position near the back door of the ape's dwelling, her slippery surface ready to trip up any attempt at escape. The rice mortar, being the largest and most powerful of the group, positioned himself above the main entrance, ready to deliver the final blow of justice. The trap was set with the precision of master craftsmen. All that remained was to wait for the ape to return. The wait was not long. As the sun reached its zenith, the ape came swaggering back toward his home, his arms full of fruit and other items he'd acquired through theft. He entered his dwelling without any sense of caution, moving with the careless ease of one who had never encountered serious opposition. His first action was to light a fire in his cooking hearth. As soon as the flames began to heat the ashes where the egg lay hidden, she exploded with a bang that echoed through the dwelling like thunder. The burst of heated shell fragments struck the ape full in the face, temporarily blinding him. "What unlucky demon has cursed me?" the ape cried, clawing at his eyes. Blinded and disoriented, the ape stumbled toward the back of his dwelling. But as he reached for the door that led to his escape route, the bee struck from her hiding place in the cupboard, her sting finding the tender skin behind his ear with surgical precision. The venom acted quickly, causing the ape's face to swell and his movements to become even more unsteady. As he stumbled toward the back door, desperate to escape, the seaweed rose from her position and stretched herself across the threshold. The ape's feet became tangled in her slippery coils, and he crashed to the ground with a force that shook the entire structure. It was at this moment of complete helplessness that the rice mortar delivered the final blow of justice. Dropping from his position above the door, he struck the ape with all the accumulated weight of his years and all the righteous fury of his cause. The blow was both physical and spiritual, representing not just the end of the ape's life, but the restoration of balance to the natural order. Justice had been served with a completeness that satisfied both the letter and the spirit of moral law. When the deed was done, the four allies gathered around their defeated enemy with a mixture of satisfaction and solemnity. There was no celebration, no gloating over their victory. They had done what needed to be done, nothing more and nothing less. "Let this be a lesson to all who would harm the innocent and helpless," the rice mortar said. "The universe has its own ways of maintaining balance." With their mission complete, the surviving allies escorted the crab back to his home beneath the willow tree. The marsh seemed different now, somehow purified by the removal of the threat that had poisoned its tranquility. The evening light fell gently across the water, and the sound of temple bells in the distance carried a note of peace and resolution. The crab's recovery was swift, aided not only by the healing herbs his friends had applied, but by the deep satisfaction of seeing justice done. More importantly, his spirit was restored. The fear and anger that had consumed him were replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. He understood now that he was not alone in the world, that there were others who shared his values and would stand with him against injustice. The persimmon tree, too, seemed to benefit from the resolution of the conflict. In the seasons that followed, it produced even more abundant fruit, as if freed from some curse that had limited its potential. The tree became a symbol of justice triumphant, of patience rewarded, of the way that good ultimately prevails over evil, when supported by courage and community. Visitors came from distant parts of the valley to see the tree and hear the story of its planting and protection. Many went away with a renewed faith in the possibility of fairness in an often cruel world. The crab lived out the rest of his days in contentment beneath his tree, tending it with the same love and patience he had shown from the beginning, but now with an added appreciation for the preciousness of peace and the value of true friendship. The seaweed and the rice mortar became regular visitors, and together they formed a community based on mutual respect and shared values. The seasons continued their eternal cycle, each one bringing new growth and new reasons for gratitude. Spring brought blossoms and the promise of fruit to come. Summer brought the deep satisfaction of growth and strengthening. Autumn brought the golden harvest that justified all the patient waiting. Winter brought rest and reflection. And always, in the background of these natural rhythms, was the memory of justice served and evil defeated. A reminder that the universe, however imperfect it might sometimes seem, ultimately favors those who live with honor and treat others with the respect that all beings deserve. The story of the battle of the ape and the crab became a tale told throughout the valley, passed down from parents to children, as a reminder of the importance of keeping faith with one's agreements, of helping those in need, and of standing up against bullies and thieves. In this way, the simple exchange of a rice cake for a persimmon seed grew into something far greater. A lesson about the nature of justice, the power of community, and the way that patience and virtue, though they may seem weak in the face of immediate aggression, ultimately prove stronger than any force that opposes them. The crab's tree still stands in the marsh, they say, its branches heavy with fruit each autumn, its shade a refuge for any creature who needs rest or protection. And in the quiet evenings, when the mist rises from the water and the first stars appear in the darkening sky, the wind through its leaves seems to whisper the ancient story, reminding all who listen that goodness, though it may suffer temporary setbacks, always finds a way to flourish in the end. The temple bells that ring across the valley each evening carry this message too, their bronze voices speaking of the eternal principles that guide the world toward justice and peace. And so, the story ends where all true stories must, not with finality, but with continuance, not with answers, but with wisdom, not with conquest, but with the quiet triumph of living in harmony with the deepest truths of existence. The marsh continues its ancient rhythms. The tree bears its golden fruit, and justice, patient as the turning of seasons, watches over all with benevolent eyes.